Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of Learn with Lo. I'm joining you guys on our post-Turkey Day Monday. So I know for some people it can be a little bit of a rough go kind of getting back into our normal routine, but hopefully everybody had a great holiday weekend and spent all beautiful time with friends and family. I'm super excited to continue on our conversations that we've been building on the last few weeks, if you've been rocking with us, around this concept of creating a new paradigm in the world of healthcare, right? And I was talking to even a patient this morning who was expressing like very similar thought patterns around his frustration of going from provider to provider and specialist to specialist of a lot of the things that he's been struggling with and not really finding answers, right? And he even made the comment of even just how thankful he was to really start to learn how the body actually works and how a lot of his symptoms were actually kind of connected together, and he was, mistreated along the way of things that we thought were actually going on, but they weren't really a root cause fix. And that's really been a huge theme that we've been talking about, right? Especially over the last few weeks with things like cortisol and okay, we're talking more about cortisol. We're realizing cortisol is more of a thing, but are we really addressing it from a root cause solution? Or last week when we really talked about different digestive descriptions, right? Which is really what a diagnosis is more often than not, is it's just a description. It's a description of a cluster of symptoms, and it can give us a great starting spot to kind of know what we're working with, but not to get confused with a diagnosis or a description being confused with an explanation or a solution, right? So last week we really dove into that topic as it pertains to a lot of digestive diagnoses that I see, and how a lot of times that doesn't always lead us to a full explanation or a solution for the symptoms, right? So with people getting more curious and also just honestly more demand, right? We have to kind of call a spade and say that there's more demand than ever for thinking about healthcare from more of a root cause perspective, because individuals are getting sicker, right? We're seeing more and more chronic illness due to a lot of changes in our nutritional patterns, changes in our lifestyle, changes in our nervous system, changes in our environmental exposures, right? And we're not able to keep up from a conventional standpoint because conventional medicine doesn't understand chronic disease. They understand more acute disease and acute care. But as we're seeing more of an interest, more of a curiosity, and honestly too, more of a demand for this type of healthcare mindset, we know that, like I said, from a practitioner standpoint, there's a lot more there's a lot more interest and a lot more demand to be able to help individuals. So I see a ton of DMs and I see a lot of inquiries, right, of individuals that are, coming to me saying, I'm picking up everything that you're putting down. I'm feeling exactly how you're describing, and I'm really ready to take control of my body. I'm ready to take back control of my health. And every time I think about it, I feel so overwhelmed, right? Where do I even start when it comes to the root cause of my hormone imbalances? Where do I even start when it feels like I have all of these digestive issues or all of these seemingly unrelated symptoms or all of these diagnoses and descriptions that are being thrown at me, but nobody really helping me piece it all together for my one body or more of a holistic kind of solution. And so when individuals come to me and they're feeling so overwhelmed, a big question is, where do I start? Right? Where do I even start? Do I need certain hormone testing? What type of specialist do I need to be seeing? What supplements do I need to start? What diet intervention do I need to try? Right? And these are all really, really valid questions. And my answer might surprise you a little bit, but the truth is you honestly need none of that. Right? And as much as don't get me wrong, I love my functional testing. I love my lab testing. We use it very, very thoroughly in my practice, and I order tests for individuals all the time. But I want to give you guys kind of a little bit of behind the scenes sneak peek, because honestly, your body already holds a lot of the tools to 90% of your success. Right? So don't think that it has to be something that you immediately outsource, right? It's what doctor do I need to see? What tests do I need to get? What supplements do I need to start? What medication do I need to start? that's not probably the starter pack that I would recommend, because it tends to lead to very temporary and minimal, if any, results at all. So if there's one thing that I'm super insanely passionate about, it's helping people learn, how do I access the tools that I actually already hold. I just don't know that I already hold these tools, and free from being bound to like somebody else's meal plan that never worked, or bound to an outsider's version of like what workouts are best for you, what supplements are best for you, and all of just being able to communicate via the blaring messages that are coming from our body on a daily basis. So I really want to dive in today and talk about what I call your Hormone Harmony Starter Pack, right? And I know a lot of times you see, even on like social media and things like that out there, like some people will kind of jokingly use like the starter pack for like what not to do. It's like, hey, here's the cortisol dysregulation starter pack, right? You're waking up at 5 a.m., you're doing pre-workout and coffee, you're running to the gym for a fasted workout, you're doing intermittent fasting until noon, you like, like kind of what not to do. Today we're going to talk about a Hormone Harmony starter pack of what to do. I've really narrowed it down for you. I'm not gatekeeping any information here. I'm going to spell it to you guys straight, of like telling you what you don't need to start this journey and more of what you do need to start this journey. And I've narrowed it down to my top four things to completely transform your health, your hormones, and just your body physically, emotionally, and mentally. And the best part is all of these things are very tangible, very specific changes that you can make all on your own, right? Which is fantastic, right? Putting the autonomy back into our hands and feeling really, really good about that, especially heading into like a holiday season. People are thinking about, the new year and things that they want to accomplish. And I just am excited to be able to share a lot of these like really tangible and specific tools and takeaways that you can start with like today. So let's jump right into it. Your Hormone Harmony Starter Pack, and really jumping into, what do I do when I don't know where to start when it comes to healing my hormones in my gut? So number one of your Hormone Harmony Starter Pack is going to be, start treating food as a form of medicine, as honestly your first form of medicine. This is something that I feel like is very overlooked, and there's not, again, enough nutritional information out there, mainstream in my mind, of what that actually looks like to use food as medicine. There's lots of diets, there's lots of meal plans, there's lots of macro calculators, but that's not food as medicine, right? Really what we need to think about is we need to get honest about what our definition of healthy eating is, and whether or not that definition is actually in alignment to what's true for you. More often than not, we're listening to all of the noise of other people trying to tell us like what's healthy, right? Eat this, not that. Eat more of this, eat less of that. Cut this out. Eliminate that, and it's like, hit these macro numbers, follow this meal plan. And that's just like so much noise, because we don't realize then that we're actually probably getting duped, and we're kind of getting a little bit conditioned, or some people might call it brainwashed, into these different ideas of what actually is healthy. And it may not actually be true for you of what is healthy. So maybe we have to get honest about the fact, like, maybe you don't know it, but your version of what you think is healthy is actually just low calories, right? And this is probably one of the most common mistakes I see, especially in women. I'm not going to lie. Because what's happening is, when we are thinking about like calories as our form of healthy, what happens is a lot of times individuals aren't factoring in how nutrient depleted they are when they're following this mindset. A lot of people also aren't factoring in or even realizing how much like more processed food that they are taking in when they're following more of that mindset. Specifically, and Yes, these things are, in my mind, more processed foods. They're doing more like protein shakes, protein bars, fiber one cereal, right? And they're thinking that just because they're hitting certain calorie goals or minimizing like overall calorie intake, that they're somehow healthy, when that probably isn't actually in alignment with what is healthy. Or maybe someone else's definition of healthy is actually like causing more stress or causing more restriction in their life, right? So this is probably the second most common picture that I tend to see, where people are mistaken about this definition of like food as medicine. They think they're using food as medicine, and they're there with a great intention, but we're missing the mark. We're missing a mark a little bit, and that's why we're not necessarily seeing the return on investment with that. So some people think that eating healthy is actually like cutting out a bunch of foods or cutting out a bunch of food groups. So they think that like keto means healthy, or low FODMAP diet means healthy, or paleo means healthy, and that those things like inherently make their diet healthier, yet it could be causing a lot of stress to the body, either like physically or mentally. So you have to factor in the role of like stress, and we talked about the role of cortisol into your healing. If your nutritional mindset is causing you mental stress trying to follow that nutritional mindset, it is not healthy. If you are anxious anytime you try to eat outside the home, like that nutritional pattern is not healthy. If you're eating the same 5 to 10 like safe foods on repeat because you have massive like gut issues and inflammation, if you don't, like that's not necessarily healthy, right? So instead, we need to take the time to like back out. We may need to completely unlearn our thought process around like what's healthy and what's not, and understand that food is just fuel, and fuel is energy. Right? So with the right types of energy, the right amount of energy coming in, or let me put it this way, without the right type or without the right amount of energy coming in, the body's probably going to be creating really crappy energy, right? And what the body can't use, it kind of gunks up, right? It gunks up in our detox pathways, it gunks up in our gut health. And so you can't really think about our body much different than like a car, for example, right? You put the wrong type of gas in, or you put a pretty cheap oil in, and you're going to have issues with the engine, with the transmission, with gas mileage, with the tires, right? It's like, yet we expect that whatever we put in our own body, like, doesn't have the same results. Like, of course it does, right? It's just different in terms of like food coming in as our source of fuel, and how our bodies run as its own type of engine. So we need to really think about and start to completely redefine healthy as something that balances blood sugar, reduces inflammation, corrects for any nutrient deficiencies, which means it's going to have to be pretty well balanced in terms of proteins and carbs and fats and fiber, and just understand how much of an immediate difference you're going to feel. Like, nutrition is probably our fastest form of medicine too. Like, you're going to notice it very quickly in terms of like, wow, my mood, my energy, my gut health, my sleep, my fertility, like things like that start to change very, very quickly when we start to think about blood sugar balance, nutrient deficiencies, and just a whole different definition of what healthy food is. This is exactly why I created my Master Your Metabolism Masterclass, because I saw so many individuals come to me and have a completely wrong idea of what is considered healthy when it comes to nutrition, physically healthy, mentally healthy, and how to actually execute that consistently on a daily basis. So that's where my Master Your Metabolism class is so immensely helpful for this, like first part of your starter pack, and that's learning how to view food as medicine. The second part of our starter pack is going to be taking your sleep seriously. I know that I've said this time and time again. I know it seems so simple on paper, but you're not just going to stumble into good sleep. And the amount of things that sleep does for our body physically, I mean, sleep is king. You cannot bottle it, because that is where our body takes part in recovery, detoxification, specifically detoxing the brain. Like that is where what we call your glymphatic system of the brain is drained, right? So it's like, oh, things like headaches, migraines, brain fog, memory challenges, focus, right? And it's like we need to drain that glymphatic system of the brain doing that. Yet we see so many people out there that are struggling with anxiety and mood disorders, ADD, ADHD, like OCD tendencies. And I'm like, are we sleeping? Right? So we can't replace that. And also sleep is where we secrete a lot of our hormones, specifically things like growth hormone and testosterone, which is great for muscle mass, metabolic rate. I mean, you name it. So sleep is king for overall metabolic health and body composition. And like I said, you're not just going to stumble into good sleep, because we have so many things in our environment that actually will like sabotage your sleep cycles more than support it. So what we really want to think about is sleep consistency. Like, are you falling asleep and waking up at relatively consistent times? Or like, are we pulling late nighters on our laptops with Netflix on in the background? Are we thinking that we're going to just use our weekends to like catch up on sleep? It doesn't work that way, right? Research shows that consistent sleep and wake times, as well as focusing on like quality over quantity here, is going to be really, really key. One of the fun things that I was reading about this weekend with a new study that actually came out was this concept called social jet lag. Social jet lag is really just a fancy calculation that you can make, and it's in what we call your median sleep time. So say, for example, you go to bed at 10 p.m. and you wake up at 4 a.m., right? That 6-hour window, your median sleep hour would then be 1 a.m., right? So the midpoint of your sleep. So social jet lag is what is called the midpoint of your sleep and how much variability you have in your midpoint of sleep from day to day. They showed that individuals that had greater than 1 hour, and it really spiked for individuals that had greater than 2 hours of variability, were at a higher risk for metabolic disease, cardiovascular disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes. Like, we're literally seeing a breakdown in cellular health when we have a wide swing in what's called social jet lag. So if you're somebody out there that's like, oh, one night I go to bed at 11 and wake up at 6, and one night I go to bed at midnight and wake up at 8, and one time I go to bed at 9 and wake up at 3, like your sleep consistency is all over the place, and so therefore your sleep quality is probably going to be all over the place. So it's just kind of fun to think about, like, when you think about this Hormone Harmony Starter Pack, like, sleep is something we absolutely need to be thinking about, which is why I do love, I don't think it's absolutely necessary by any means, but I think a good sleep tracker can, for a lot of people, really like turn you on to like how well you think you're sleeping versus how you're actually sleeping, or help you make some of those calculations in things like, how much deep sleep am I even getting? Because that's where your brain detoxes, right? Or what is my midpoint of sleep? And do I have like these wild variabilities in my sleep? That's something that I think can be immensely helpful. So that's why I like some of those kind of sleep tracker systems for things like that as well too. Closely related to sleep in our starter pack is we do need to, our tool, this is tool number 3, by the way, of our starter pack, is we need to start getting honest about what stress means to our body. This is another thing that I think we all understand, or at least we are under the impression that we know that stress is not great for our body. And most of us are not running around trying to find like more stress to add to our lives. I don't think anybody is doing that intentionally, but I think the biggest thing is what I call unrealized stress. Things that our conscious brain either like refuses to see, or it can't see it because it doesn't realize that it's there. It doesn't realize that it's actually causing a stress on our body, yet we have 100% control over it. So maybe it's our relationship with caffeine or alcohol. We have more, like I said, addictive patterns, or we have overuse or abuse patterns of things like caffeine or alcohol. Maybe it's our 5 a.m. fasted workouts that we're doing 6 days a week, and our body sees that as stress. Or it's our inability to let go of certain exercise patterns that aren't great for us, and we're out there killing ourselves with Peloton and boot camp and 2-a-days and like thinking that that's like strength training. I'm like, that is not strength training. That is 100% high intensity cardio, and your body hates you for it, right? Or maybe it's your work schedule that you never actually clock out of, right? It's always on in the back of your brain. Maybe it's toxic friendships and toxic relationships that drain you that you won't dump, and you won't set boundaries with people in your life that absolutely drain you. You refuse to say no, and you overcommit yourself. There's maybe, like I said, past trauma or inner child work that needs to be done rather than you numbing out with alcohol and sugar at night, right? So all of these are like key to foundational health. And I think a lot of these are like unrealized stress that sometimes can fly under the radar. And we think like, oh, I'm not stressed, but really I'm not talking about mental stress that we can't control. I'm talking about the physical stressors that we put on our body every single day, and we refuse to see it, or we can't see it because we don't even know it's a thing and it's there. Again, which is why sometimes I like some objective data around this versus just asking someone like, oh, how stressed do you feel? Sometimes you're not going to get a great answer about that. So tracking things like heart rate variability, again, that goes back to some of your like kind of wearable devices, can really give you like a blatant, honest report card for how your body is seeing stress, right? A high HRV, like above 50, is usually very indicative of a more balanced nervous system, which is a good thing. Low HRV, like under 50, is usually a poorly adapted nervous system that's kind of stuck in fight or flight, and we have a lot of cortisol issues, right? So far in our little Hormone Harmony Starter Pack, we talked about learning how to use food as medicine. We talked about learning how to take sleep seriously. And we've also talked about learning how to get a very honest look at your body's perception of stress in your life. For number 4, or my hormone starter packs, I said there's 4. So our last and final one goes mostly for my females. You might add this to your starter pack, but I would say definitely starting to track and understand your menstrual cycle. This is something that you can do with a wearable device. This is something you can do without a wearable device. You do not need this, but at least using some sort of calendar system to understand how long or how short your cycle windows are. Even a little bit better, if you want something more, you can use something like a basal body temperature tracker to measure things like when you're ovulating or if you're even ovulating, because that's going to be really key. If you're not ovulating, you're not creating progesterone. Progesterone, we love her. We call her nature's Xanax for a reason. She's very calming. She crosses the blood-brain barrier. She initiates things called GABA, which can be very relaxing to the body. And that's why a lot of times low progesterone is associated with things like night sweats, insomnia, migraines, anxiety, right? We feel that if we're not protecting and nourishing our hormonal cycles. So to me, tracking your menstrual cycle really teaches you, and you get to learn how to live in alignment with your cycles versus fighting against your cycles all of the time, because there are, believe it or not, certain times of the month where you might want to eat more carbs, and then there's certain times of the month where you might want to eat less carbs. There's certain times of the month to do more high intensity interval training, and there's times of your cycles to do less. There's times to push a little bit more intensity, and there's times where you want to sit in the sauna and support your liver and your drainage and detox pathways, right? Once you're living in alignment with your body's natural rhythms, that's when our female transformations are, dare I say, easy. They're way more effortless, right? If you are having to diet and cardio yourself to death, you're doing it wrong. Just here to say you're doing it wrong. You're running yourself farther and farther into the ground if you just think that I'm going to cut calories, count macros, put myself on appetite suppressants, do more cardio, do 2-a-days. Like, I'm telling you, like, skirt, I'd hard stop that, because like, not only are you running yourself farther into the ground, but it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that unenjoyable. So all my secrets for success that I've guided literally hundreds of clients through with spectacular transformations, all here for you, right? So you think about these 4 pillars of your Hormone Harmony Starter Pack. I really wanted to come into this holiday season with a little gift for you guys. And now, if you were part of my email newsletter list, you already got a sneak peek at this. But for those of you that were not part of my email newsletter list yet, 1, what are you doing? And 2, I want to let you in on my lo and behold, I love my little play on words here, my lo and behold holiday Hormone Harmony Starter Pack, right? So what I've done for you, first time I've ever done this, and probably the only time I'm ever doing this, is bundling this starter pack together for you guys, right? So if you see these like 4 main pillars, right? Nutrition as medicine, taking my sleep seriously, starting to get a more honest report card of stress on my body, and potentially tracking menstrual cycles for my females. If you're like, how do I do that? I've literally bundled together 3-in-1 of my self-starter programs that you can start today, right? So I've bundled together here my Master Your Metabolism Masterclass, my intuitive interpretation guide for wearable technology, which comes with a bonus module for your cycle syncing 101, as well as my comprehensive guide to ordering hormone labs as well too, so that you could take that to any of your healthcare professional team. If we're not working together, you could take that to your healthcare professional team and literally have a list of like, hey, these are the types of labs and metrics that I would love to see run on myself in the new year to have some baseline metabolic data on myself, right? So I get that question quite a bit of like, what lab should I ask for when I go to my PCP? I'm literally bundling all of this for you together. My lo and behold bundle, all 3 of those programs are bundled together for you to start here and jump into not only this holiday season, but honestly all of 2025, feeling equipped with a really, really strong foundation that you can own and really kind of feel that freedom and autonomy on your own of like how this looks to start to take control of my health and hormones. So the lo and behold bundle is live now. I'll make sure you guys have a link below in the comments. And also, if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll answer those as well too. So super excited for you guys to be able to take advantage of this 3-in-1 bundle. I've literally never done this before. Chances are I will never do this again because I have way more ideas for kind of 2025. So get it while it's hot and start to really take a jump start into your not only holiday season, but a 2025 feeling like I got this. I have all these tools and Lauryn is literally there to help guide me through it every single step of the way. So carry me in your back pocket, see me on my modules and videos as you start to jump into your lo and behold Hormone Harmony Starter Pack. So hope to see you guys there and we will catch you guys next Monday for another